What is up, you guys? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host, Ayman Hassan, and welcome back to another video. Now, we all make mistakes, sometimes I wake up and forget to turn the heater off before I leave the house. Sometimes I pronounce things wrong in my videos to the resounding disappointment of all of you, but it's fine. Those are just small mistakes, they're not gonna kill anyone. I mean, my mistakes won't, but the ones on this list definitely have. Sometimes it's the tiniest mistakes that can cause the utmost devastation. So with that being said, these are the top 10 scary mistakes that led to disasters. Starting us off at number 10 is Chernobyl. I feel like I genuinely don't have to explain this one because everyone knows what happened to Chernobyl, but I must admit the HBO series was overhyped for me personally, but it was number 1 in the world for a while, so I caved and I watched it. Either way, back in April of 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine ran a routine safety test that they technically shouldn't have done, but did so anyways. The tests were being run in case of a power outage to find a way to maintain the reactor's cooling water circulation until the backup generators could provide power. Because if they couldn't find a way to do this, then the nuclear reactor core could overheat, and that would be disastrous. The 4th test was delayed by 10 hours, meaning an unprepared staff member was on duty. While doing the test, the reactor malfunctioned and the reactor core itself actually exploded. That one explosion caused tons of radiation and radioactive gas and debris to circulate in the air, affecting people in the area and people far from it as well. The scientist in charge at the time refused to believe the reactor core had blown up and was proper in denial. Even after workers went in there and saw the blown up core, he didn't believe it. So thinking it wasn't as bad as it was, he told the plant owner it wasn't that bad, who told government officials it wasn't that bad, who told the locals of Pripyat it was not that bad. So these innocent kids and families and pets were roaming around this critically dangerous radioactive city for days before finding out the truth. And when the government leaves you exposed to toxic radiation just to cover their own arse, that's how you know the world is screwed, people. Coming in at number 9 is the Hubble telescope. Launched in 1990, Hubble was meant to be NASA's greatest observation tool and deliver images of impeccable quality. And it had the capability since it had inside of it one of the most powerful mirrors ever built, put in by some of the most capable engineers in the world. A man called Lou Montanino was in charge of testing Hubble, but he had no idea that a microscopic chip of paint had come off one of the measuring rods that was meant to make sure the mirror was the right shape. No he had no idea it was microscopic. How could he even see it with his naked eye? Now, this tiny fleck caused multiple false readings, because of which the mirror ended up being 4 microns off. Do you know how small that is? That's 25 times smaller than the width of a human hair. This tiny mistake made the quality of the pictures Hubble took significantly worse than expected, and by the time they realized why the pictures were it was already in damn space. At number 8, we have the St. Francis Dam. Located in LA, the concrete curved dam was built back in 1926 to regulate and store a reservoir for the city. The project was headed by William Mulholland, the chief engineer and manager at the LA Department of Water and Power. William designed it himself and oversaw the entirety of its construction, but as it started filling up, there were many contraction cracks and seepage that ended up showing up. William decided to exclude contraction joints from his design, and soon there were 2 long vertical cracks that ran through the dam from top to bottom. By the end of Feb 1928, there was a huge leak 150 feet west of the main dam. It was discharging 4.5 gallons of water per second. William inspected it and said it was just another contraction and left it there to drain. By March, it had doubled and new cracks were forming, but William kept saying everything was normal. Minutes before midnight on March 12th, and only 2 hours after his last inspection, the dam burst open and in the end ended up killing 431 people. Filling on the 7th slot is the Ariane 5 rocket. This one was truly disastrous. Honestly, this whole list is disastrous, but this was bad. So the European Space Agency's Ariane 5 rocket was made to propel Europe forward as the head of space exploration. However, its guidance system was running some of the same code as its older sibling, the Ariane 4, and this proved critically bad. 36.7 seconds into its launch, the guidance computer attempted to convert the sideways velocity to a different format. But since the Ariane 5 was faster than the Ariane 4, the velocity conversion generated a number that was just way too big to be represented by a 16-bit signed integer. But since the Ariane 5 was much faster, the velocity conversion generated a number that was too big to be represented by a 16-bit signed integer. All of a sudden, the nozzles of 2 solid rocket boosters as well as the engine swung out of position, nearly detaching the boosters, which resulted in the triggering of a self-destruct mechanism. 39 seconds into its maiden flight, the satellite was completely destroyed, wasting something from 360 $470 to $500 million. Now, number 6, A Lights Out Part 1. July 13th, 1977, a system operator at New York's Con Edison Electric facility was just chilling during his shift, probably trying to catch some quick shut-eye or reading a comic probably. Then, in some freak accident, the facility was struck by lightning 3 times, nearly crippling the whole thing. The operator was probably like, I literally did not sign up for this, I'm just trying to go home and get paid. Either way, to make matters worse, neighboring facilities then opened up their connections to the Con Ed system so their own systems wouldn't overload. Now at this point, everything is about to go tits up unless this operator flips a bunch of switches quickly and in the right order. He started going at it, but he somehow managed to flip one switch out of order, and within minutes a massive 230,000 volts connection to New Jersey was closed and the entire Con Ed system shut down. Now what did that mean, you might be wondering? Well, let's get into it. Coming in at number 5, A Lights Out Part 2. Now this tiny mistake of flipping one switch in the wrong order resulted in New York City being without electricity for 25 hours. And just think about the time this is happening. It's July, so it's bloody hot, and the son of Sam serial killer was on the loose as well, so no one was having this. What resulted during the blackout was parties on the streets turning very quickly into violent riots and stealing. People started smashing in-store windows, committing arson, destroying property, and more. By the time the lights came on, 1,037 fires had been set, 3,776 people had been arrested, and 1,616 shops had been damaged. The loss was about $300 million, but apparently this disaster actually created hip-hop. It gave poor inner-city youths access to DJ equipment since they stole it, so I mean, good did come of this. At number 4 is the Challenger. On the 28th of January 1986, NASA's Challenger space shuttle was set to take off. However, 73 seconds into the launch, the entire shuttle exploded, killing all 7 crew members inside. Gobsmacked on what went wrong, it took NASA a while to discover it was due to the O-rings on the craft. O-rings are bits of the solid rocket boosters that can actually withstand immense amounts of pressure per square inch. Pressure the O-rings can handle, but temperatures not so much. They're not designed to operate at low temperatures, and the day of the launch was weirdly colder than usual. And because of that, the O-ring seal failed during the launch and was quickly resealed by aluminium oxides from the rocket. However, strong wind caused it to tear apart seconds later, and thus disaster struck. The loss was estimated to be $5.5 billion, not to mention 7 lives. Filling in closer is Reply All. Admittedly, this one made me laugh quite a bit, so I thought I would include it for some relief. So back in 2009, the admissions staff at UC San Diego were getting back to applicants about whether or not they had been accepted into the college. But the staff accidentally used the wrong database for the task, meaning they ended up sending out acceptance emails to every single person who had applied for the fall 2009 session, including people who had already gotten their rejection emails. 46,000 people got the acceptance email, despite only 18,000 of them actually being accepted. They then obviously had to work around the clock apologizing to 29,000 people and their parents about the false acceptance. Imagine being so upset about not getting into your dream school, then getting an email saying you did in fact get in, and then having your hopes and dreams reignited to then be told it was an accidental email. I'd be pissed. Now, number 2 is the N1 rocket. Now, during the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the US were engaged in a very serious arms race, and honestly, it was just a pissing contest to see which country could excel in every facet of life. So during the 60s, the Soviets developed the N1 rocket, which was meant to be the Soviet version for the US's Saturn V moon rocket. Saturn V had 5 huge engines, but the Soviets decided instead of having a small number of big engines, they'd have 30 small ones, which could have gone brilliantly or horribly, and unfortunately, it was the latter. On a second launch attempt, a bolt came loose and was then sucked into the fuel pump just as the rocket was traveling through the atmosphere. As soon as it was sucked in, it caused a major explosion that spread to all of the other engine in matchstick fashion, and thus the rocket plummeted to Earth while still exploding. This epic fail left the Soviet moon program bankrupt, and the Soviet Union denied this event happened for like 40 more years. Like, bruh, it happened. We saw it happening in the sky. And finally, at number 1 is the Lost Orbiter. Honestly, NASA's on the list a lot more than I'd like it to be, considering they're meant to be a collection of some of the most brilliant minds in the world. But anyway, the Mars Climate Orbiter was part of the Mars Survey project that took place back in 1998. 2008. The project was developed in order to study climate and weather patterns on Mars so we can obviously move there one day. Lockheed Martin was hired to help build the orbiter, and he installed the software and the spacecraft thrusters in Imperial units. However, nobody told NASA that, and they continued doing their thing in metric units. Personally, I do metric. I hate when someone tells me how much they weigh in pounds or says something in inches. Like that none of that means anything to me. I don't know what that means. Either way, because of this, the Mars Climate Orbiter didn't even land on Mars. The metric units mixed with the Imperial units caused the thrusters to fire wrong, so it came into Mars orbit way lower than expected and then just disappeared altogether. NASA lost $330 million and a lot of dignity. Like, come on people. No one thought to ask what units they were working in? Shocking behavior. And that is it for today's video, guys. Honestly, this one made me laugh. I just like laughing at the misfortune of others, because you know it's not me that's in the wrong. Let me know what you guys thought about this in the comments below. As always, I'm your host, Ayman Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!